We're nearing the end of another calendar year and time's clock stops for nobody. As we enter another rotation of the Earth and we try to fend off our thoughts of existential dread and our own mortality, let's talk about one of life's great distractions, video games. I've had fun in 2022 with this hobby. I've played some stuff that came out this year, some stuff from last year, the year before, and a remake. I've even made a list. You want to see that list? You don't? Well, what are you watching this for then? Okay, here we go. There's no order to this because my thoughts are just as disorganised as my millennial life. It's my list, so if you disagree with my subjective opinions, you're wrong and you should feel bad. Here's a bunch of games I played this year. Starting now. Tinykin was a surprise gem of an indie game that I played on a whim when it hit Game Pass as a day one release. Mechanically, it's kind of a combination of a 3D collectathon platformer with a bit of Pikmin and some Chibi Robo for good measure. You have a set of levels to play through that are all based on different rooms found in a typical household. Each of these levels features a whole bunch of collectibles to find, puzzles to solve, and even more collectibles to find. Sometimes you can find yourself stuck for a while just looking for that one last MacGuffin, but something just keeps you wanting to keep exploring. Maybe it's the cuteness of Tinykin, the surfing physics with your sponge allowing you to traverse the level really comfortably, or just the sheer novelty of this house's 1991 setting, but whatever it was, I was hooked to this title. Each Tinykin type affects how you traverse the level, and this is an effective way of gradually opening up more of the level to the player, and makes it less daunting of a prospect to find everything that it could otherwise have been. Each Tinykin type is introduced after the player has had time to learn the mechanics introduced by the previous type, and how it affects the level design, and the way the game teaches the player how to use mechanics feels intuitive without resorting to the tedium of a pace-breaking tutorial level. The story is whimsical, the setting is quaint and cozy, and it all just plays so fluidly. The platforming and skill tree is executed very well. Seriously, go play this one. The gunk does what it does very well. It's simple, you suck up some gunk, explore an alien planet, solve some puzzles, do some platforming, and suck up some more gunk. In addition to exploring an uncharted planet, the game's plot explores the relationship between scavengers Rennie and Beck as they face some inner conflict over whether they should work to restore this planet or if they should prioritise their own safety, leave, and work to resolve their own precarious financial situation. The dialogue between these two is delivered brilliantly, with every line feeling so sincere, accompanying a plot that feels mostly light in tone, but with some serious moments of character introspection, similar in tone to a Pixar movie. The puzzles aren't too complex, and the game's length is roughly around the 5-hour mark. It's another title that I would usually have not tried for myself if a purchase was necessary, but it caught my attention on Game Pass, and I had it beat in a couple of sessions. The visuals are gorgeous, the sound design is so tranquil, and considering this is the first 3D title by Image & Form, i.e. the SteamWorld devs, I look forward to seeing what they put out going forward if this is where they're at right now. A fan-made game made it on this list, and it damn well deserves to be on it. I haven't spent much time with the 8-bit original Sonic Triple Trouble, but this 16-bit remake by Noah Copeland plays like an absolute delight. The look, style, physics, and set pieces all make this game look and feel like a missing 2D Mega Drive Sonic game from 1995, a true Sonic 4. The story follows on from the end of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, giving us an abridged version of the events of Triple Trouble that, as the title suggests, gives us 3 enemies to face off against. It seemingly appears that Knuckles has been tricked again, Fang the Sniper debuts and causes some mischief, and Robotnik is once again up to no good after we cracked his death egg, and this game throws some real twists and turns at the player with the story. Sonic has every one of his abilities from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, and the addition of Drop Dash. He once again has Tails by his side, but he can actually switch to Tails on the fly, kind of similarly to how the Mania Plus Encore mode works, with the levels designed to take advantage of this. Between the soundtrack having that Mega Drive-esque FM sound chip twang to it, the use of various set pieces providing a sense of era-appropriate 16-bit nostalgia for various games of that era, the well-executed momentum physics, and such effective level design, this is a must-play for any Sonic fan who loves that classic era. I need to preface this entry by saying there is a massive asterisk on it. We have a light gun game that released without a light gun. It has analog stick support, which is just insufficient. It has gyro support, which is inaccurate and has to constantly be recentered. PC and Xbox have mouse support, which out of the box is probably the most playable control method, but it's not a light gun. Thankfully, a friend of mine who's very good with electronics discovered a project called Gun for IR and was nice enough to put together a light gun for me based on the design specs, and unlike traditional light guns, this works if you have a flat screen. No need to hunt down a CRT. You may have heard of Sinden's light guns. This uses a different approach to it though. I'll leave some links in the description if you want to learn more about it. So okay, I've got a light gun, I've got a custom community plugin to support said light gun. How did I get on with this remake? I love it. I forgot how satisfying these light gun shooters can be. I never played much of the original House of the Dead back in the day, the arcades I went to didn't have it, and my time with the Saturn was limited. As a first timer, I felt something similar to nostalgia, but for this era of games specifically. The mechanical simplicity, the B-movie tone of the voice acting, the soundtrack, the branching pathways, the way it can be beaten in under an hour, but somehow keeps you coming back to build up tens to hundreds of hours of playtime. I just forgot how much I like that style of game. The way this remake looks aesthetically is perfect for this kind of game. The feeling of impact on each successful shot and managing to get a perfect headshot on a zombie is just intangibly satisfying. If you're an owner of some kind of modern PC light gun solution, like a Sinden, Gun for IR, or even a Dolphin Bar, this is a must play. Now hopefully the remake of the second game gets an actual sodding light gun with it. This is a hard game to talk about because it's very much an analog experience. I'll keep it vague. The Stanley Parable is a comedic take on the concept of interaction and player choice in the video game medium, and speaks to an audience that's familiar with a lot of video game tropes and satirises them in the cleverest ways. There are so many pathways and outcomes, all accompanied by the brilliant voice work of Kevin Brighting, who demonstrates a true range of tones in his delivery of various contextual moments. This is an experience you need to go into as blind as possible, it's meta in the best possible way, and if you've already played the 2013 release of Stanley Parable on Steam, this Ultra Deluxe version is absolutely still worth a play, perhaps even more so. I grew up in the 90s, so of course I like Ninja Turtles. By the looks of things, people who grew up in the 0s and 10s like the Ninja Turtles too. This makes me happy. I like beat 'em ups too. Right now, between stuff like Final Vendetta, Streets of Rage 4, River City Girls, and the port of Scott Pilgrim, we're in somewhat of a beat 'em up renaissance. This too makes me happy. Does Shredder's Revenge manage to stand alongside this growingly abundant beat 'em up market? Oh hell yes! It's the Turtles in Time successor we've waited for years. It's mechanically satisfying, impactful, fast-paced, and oh so kinetic. Tribute Games, the Scott Pilgrim game guys, did an amazing job with this title. We have T-Lopes on sound, and as a Sonic fan, I do like me some T-Lopes tunes. Each character feels distinct to use while maintaining a sense of balance. The special moves are fairly easy to restore the meter for in many circumstances, the method for which is simply executing a taunt, though some levels, like the board levels, will send some obstacles to interrupt you, and some boss fights will punish you for being still in certain areas. And some waves of enemies too. There is an option to heal downed allies if they take a full health bar of damage, but this too comes with some risk. It's definitely an incentive for co-op play though. The only thing I felt let down by was that the online play was very unreliable in my experience, but if you can get a local game going, you're in for a really good time. I didn't expect a satirical or Zelda clone to be one of the top games of the year for me, but Turnip Boy somehow managed it. I was having a bit of a rough mental health patch and I needed something light, wholesome, and uplifting. You've got some fairly light puzzle solving that gets your brain going just a little bit, but won't be giving you Water Temple dread anytime soon. You've got some simple but well executed combat, some adorable artwork, great character interactions, and some brilliant meta humour. It's only about 2 to 3 hours long, so it won't outstay its welcome, and if you're having a bad day, this game just might make you feel a bit better. Oh, and the soundtrack is so wholesome. Playing through this game is worth it for the end credit song. I'll absolutely be playing Turnip Boy Robs a Bank on day one. This entry was on my backlog for a little while, but I finished it off this year and I'm so glad I did. Doom Eternal is without a doubt the best first-person shooter I've played in years. So you've got a wave of enemies surrounding you, and you're likely to take some hits. What do? Get a couple of shots in on an enemy until they're weakened, melee them with a glory kill, and you pull their eye out, force feed it to them, or rip their head off, or tear them apart, and yeah, you get some health back for that. This game's so gratuitous in its violence. If it came out in the 90s, US senators would cancel it faster than you can say Night Trap. Now, I've played gratuitously violent games before in the past, and the gore effects aren't enough to keep me engaged. It gets old quick typically. So, what does Doom Eternal do differently? Well, I think it's down to how they design the enemies to have particular strengths and weaknesses to certain weapons, and an element of strategy to the gameplay that, if ignored, will result in death, even on the I'm too young to die difficulty, and it really adds to the gameplay loop. You know how often in a game you'll have that urge to hoard your ammo for your best weapons in case of a big bad? You'll be getting those big bads frequently, and they will make you use those weapons. You will be using your BFG ammo, and you'll like it. Doom Eternal is slasher gore and metal epitomised, it's fast, kinetic, has plenty of MacGuffins to find, plenty of demons to explode, and plenty of fun to be had. Metroid Dread was the first Metroid game I ever finished. Seriously, why did I leave it this long? Mercury Steam developed a masterpiece of a game that had me go through a range of emotions thanks to its gameplay loop. I was tense every time I had to sneak by an enemy robot. I was glee-filled when I finally found that new pathway by shooting the right part of a wall or remembering to use that new ability I'd recently acquired. I was angry and swearing a lot when I died to admittedly fairly designed boss fights, which were totally unfair in my mind in the moment. I was hyper-focused as anything when I was making sure that I was using Samus' abilities in some of the smoothest and sleekest physics I've experienced. That just one more try feeling was ever present. It's a tough task releasing a game for a legendary genre creating series, but right now it might be my favourite Switch game. You're in for a challenge with Metroid Dread, but it's such a satisfying challenge. Upon completion of Metroid Dread, I went back to earlier entry Metroid Zero Mission. Once again I found myself wondering why I'd left it this long. Now Zero Mission might be my favourite Game Boy Advance game. I want to proceed with the series, but I'm not sure whether to run through Samus Returns or AM2R, or both next. What do you think? There's a sense of mysticism and wonder in Kena Bridge of Spirits that I've not felt from a game to this degree in a while. The titular character is tasked with restoring a decomposing forest to its previously natural state, and I do mean very beautiful, this game is gorgeous, so that the trapped spirits can be freed and at peace. The combat is fast-paced, fluid, and it really makes you think about enemy patterns and have to learn each fight. I struggled on easy, timing is everything and you'll need to get good at parrying. There's a skill tree that requires the player to find and collect these little critters called Rot, who will help you in your combat and in puzzles. You'll be exploring a lot, but the aesthetically pleasing environments with a serene soundtrack will make it a joy of an experience. This world is a fictional vision inspired by Japan and Indonesia, and it's an aesthetic that I really love. Kena is an indie masterpiece and one of the best games you can spend your money on right now. And finally we end with another Sonic game, because hey, it's my list and I like the damn Hedgehog. It's so good to be happy about a new official Sonic game again. Outside of Sonic Mania, which was effectively a fan game that Sega licensed, a brilliant fan game but still, the last time I enjoyed a new Sonic game was Sonic Generations. That was 11 years ago. The time meter stops for no one. Sonic in open world just works so well. I can spend ages just running around the islands and it just feels so satisfying. While previous design choices or technical limitations had him stuck to more of a corridor design, this felt like the next logical step. One of the defining aspects of the original Mega Drive games were the divergent level paths. They were just as, if not more important than momentum physics. Running around these big grassy mountainous landscapes feels something akin to controlling the Toei Sonic from the opening to CD, at least how I'd imagine it. Combat feels so much better than previous attempts by this franchise. Enemies have different strengths and weaknesses, but Sonic's got a distinct and varied moveset that, while some moves feel redundant, you're not going to simply be using the homing attack over and over. These enemies have patterns and you'll need to work out how to tackle them. Some of these fights feel like some Shadow of the Colossus level scale of kaiju, whether it's the Guardians or the Titans. The amount of times I first encountered an enemy and asked, how do I beat this big bastard to myself? And the Eureka moments are satisfying to experience. The Guardians feel spectacular, but the Titans, they're something else. The experience of controlling Super Sonic to some metal core that goes hard, while fighting the seemingly invincible giant, was just so ridiculously anime that my weeb-ass brain was in euphoria. I think Frontiers might have the best boss fights in the series to date, but that might just be recency bias. At the very least, the presentation is epic. It has a 2000s edgy AMV energy that I adored. Sonic games are known for having brilliant soundtracks, and Frontiers is next level. As mentioned, the Titan battles are so metal. The open worlds have some melancholic atmospheric tunes, and the cyberspace stages have some brilliant house and trance bangers, and not to be left out, the Big the Cat fishing minigame has some nice lo-fi to chill to. I dare say this is the most eclectic soundtrack I've seen from the franchise. Finally, the story. We're far beyond the cringe of Baldy McNosehair. Ian Flynn did good. Very, very good. I hope he keeps being involved with future entries. We got some callbacks to series lore that we waited about 20 years for. The character interactions were so sincere and just felt right. I'm sold on the new voice cast. They delivered. I won't spoil this for you. All I'll say is get the Eggman memos and don't you dare skip a single cutscene. I've had a good time with this hobby in 2022, and this is just the stuff I played through. I need to put some more time into some other titles and get them finished. Backlogs are a bitch, huh? How was 2022 for you? Let me know what you've enjoyed. Thanks for watching.